The Bible. This is the Bible.
What makes him even more annoying is that he can be summoned as a backup by some random monster. Luckily, teamwork will be the victor at the end. If you work as a team, you'll be able to handle this behemoth.
And yet he's still 3 slots above Galactus, who you said is incredibly unfair even though you have a team of 3 fighters. Yes, I know there's a difference between controlling a team of your choice and having a team of different players, but the point still stands that teamwork is needed in both instances.
God damn it, Snake, you made a point so bad it made Kirby sick. Like, sure, technically you have a team in both games, but the difference is in Marvel vs. Capcom 3, you're controlling the full team. Sure, you can pull off team combos and specials, but at the end of the day, it's all being done by one player. While in Monster Hunter, you have 3 other players who can assist you in your hunt. For example, you can focus on doing damage on the monster, while one teammate tries poisoning it, one sets up a trap, and one grants buffs with the monster horn all at the same time. Something that wouldn't be possible to do solo, as a lone player would have to deal with each of them one at a time. So comparing the two really doesn't work here.
Azazel, Tekken 6. Oh hey, another fighting game. No surprise there. Azazel is a giant fire-breathing crystal dragon who's as tall as a screen in Tekken 6. He's absolutely enormous compared to anyone you've fought in the game thus far. He seems a little out of place in the Tekken world, and once you fight him, you'll also agree.
This is the same game where you can fight as both a panda and a grizzly bear, yet somehow a dragon is the thing you set aside your suspension of disbelief over. Or are you being deliberately fatuous because you happen to hate this boss? Because that's not an excuse.
So, are you intentionally ignoring how his reason for Azazel being out of place wasn't because of its species, but because of its sheer size? You know, the size explicitly stated to be larger than any other Tekken character.
Also, when trying to bring up an example about how Azazel isn't that unrealistic in the Tekken universe, you decide to bring up bears. Bears! An animal that exists in the real world proves that a giant fire-breathing crystal dragon isn't that unrealistic in the Tekken universe. I don't know how much smile dip you ate to believe that bears are mythical creatures. All I know is that you need to be cut off. You're overdosing. Now maybe you were referring to the fact that you could fight as bears, but it's really not that unrealistic, since bears are strong animals and have sharp teeth and claws that they can use to rip you apart. I think they can hold their own in a fight. And hell, it's not like you couldn't have proven that Azazel isn't that unrealistic in the Tekken universe. Like there's Elsa, who is a vampire, the thing called the devil gene which, and I quote, allows for a person to have a parasite/host type relationship with a malignant spirit referred to as a devil, as well as having it, the gene, control the transformations of one to the other. Hell, despite giving you shit for it, you actually could have used the bears to prove your point. If you actually focused on the other aspects except for them being, well, just frickin' bears. Mainly Kuna, who had a higher intelligence among other bears, which allowed it to learn sign language, martial arts techniques, and basic Japanese, and was a bodyguard for its owner. What I'm trying to say is don't suck. You're not Kirby.
He's one of the most unpredictable bosses you'll fight in the game. You never know if he'll unleash a combo or stomp you to your death. Either way, it's bad. He also has different animations for the same attack, which makes it very difficult to react to his moves as quickly as possible. Just stay still, gosh! When you finally land an attack on him, his health bar will barely even move. He's unfair in every sense of the word. Azazel is so tall he covers the majority of your viewing angle at any given time, which is just plain annoying. What is this trend of really tough bosses in fighting games that cover the entire screen?
He isn't that big.
Snake. He reaches up beyond the health bar. The hell do you mean he's not that big? For God's sakes, lay off the smile dip, Snake. This is starting to get concerning.
Can I have the smile dip if he's not allowed to have it anymore?
No, Kirby. The smile dip is bad. It's like acid if it was child-friendly.
Hell, he's a lot smaller than Galactus, who you harbor the same complaint against. I'd argue that you have even more room to fight Azazel here, since he at least moves in all directions, whereas Galactus only moves forward. Plus, in your own footage, you can play as Azazel against Azazel, so it's like fighting fire with fire. Not to mention the character Nancy is just as big as he is, and you show it fighting Azazel as well. To be quite honest, I'm getting this impression you just suck at fighting games.
Yeah, no. While true, Galactus only moves forward, Galactus not only remains stationary a shit ton of the time during his boss fight, but he can't constantly move towards you to pin you on one side of the screen like Azazel can. Also, Nancy is the same size as Azazel? Well, disregarding how you cut out them showing this, you do know that he gave more reasons than Azazel's size for why he was cheap. Right? Primarily, how he said Azazel's moves are hard to read since different moves have the same animation, as opposed to Nancy, who has long animations and cooldowns when attacking, is easier to read, and is unable to block at all. Fun fact, Snake, knowing how to react to a move and being able to block attacks are kinda important for fighting games.
This also bricks her point about fighting Azazel with Azazel, since they still wouldn't have much indication about how to react. Also, if I can go back to the size complaint, you bring up that gamer threw the same complaint at Galactus, and explained how Galactus had it worse, and I'm like, it's still a problem with Azazel? Why should it matter that a previous entry had the same issue but worse? As stated earlier, the gamer brought up other issues for why Azazel was a cheap boss that differ from Galactus, which even if this was definitively a ranked list, could have been the reason why Azazel got a higher placement on the list. What did I say about not sucking like Kirby?
Seth, Street Fighter 4. Well, hello, Street Fighter. Fancy meeting you here a second time. You would think the developers of Street Fighter 3 would learn to tone down their bosses for the next installment, but oh no, you'd be dead wrong. Seth in Street Fighter 4 is just as cheap as Gil. His movement is literally entirely made up of enhanced versions of the best attacks from other characters. Yeah, the developers were too lazy to give him his own moveset, so they just increased the damage on the best moves. Yeah, because that's fair. He was purposely designed to be as frustrating as possible, which is not cool. Seth has no weaknesses. You seriously can't even name one. How can you beat a boss with 0 weaknesses? It's just not fair. Not fair!
You might want to consider the fact that Seth has no specific weaknesses. For example, Salad Snake has no specific weaknesses. You just kick the shit out of him enough until he can't fight anymore. Who's to say that's not the case with Seth?
Having no weakness does kinda make sense, but at the same time, you could also argue she really doesn't have any apparent weakness. Like, as an example, Goku doesn't have an apparent weakness, you just knock him silly enough until he's down. Who's to say Killer Ann isn't written the same way?
You know, if you're gonna plagiarize Silver, you might as well use it in the right context. When Silver used it, it was in regards to how somebody's fan character wasn't necessarily overpowered, as even if a character isn't exactly weak to something, they can still be taken out. Here, however, this is in regards to a fighting game character having no weaknesses within the gameplay. And fun fact, for a fighting game character to be balanced, they tend to need to have some cons to them. Especially in Seth's case where, according to the gamer, it's the game's best moves that are cranked up to 11. A character with the highest highs and no drawbacks kinda screams overpowered in a fighting game, don't you think?
Also, correct me if I'm wrong, but many other Street Fighter characters typically don't have weaknesses either, and your chances of defeating them are dependent on your skill level.
Zangief is slow and has longer wind-up animations, along with his up-and-close playstyle making him susceptible to projectiles. Cammy doesn't have a lot of mix-up, making her easier to predict. Rose's playstyle and minimal knockback make her more vulnerable to air and counter-attacks. And Vega has lower defense than most other characters. I know almost nothing about Street Fighter, but I was easily able to find this information by going to the Street Fighter wiki. I don't see why you could have done the same to make sure your point was solid.